Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Happy Labor Day. We are working, as are all four shows on 104.5 The Zone today. We're happy to have you here with us for the next 3 hours. Get you through your Monday off. 615-737-1045. That's the number. If you want to jump in, we'd be happy to have you at any point. We've got Mike Vrabel at the podium, but we've got an actual football game to talk about of relevance to the state of Tennessee. So the Vols and Virginia at Nissan Stadium in front of a record crowd. 69,507 in attendance, all wearing orange. Neither Lucas nor I went to the game itself. We decided to take in the sights and sounds from East Nashville. Good morning, bud. Hope you had an enjoyable weekend off.
Good morning. I had a fantastic weekend.
I'm glad to hear that. Is there any regret in coming into work today? They gave us the option. Nobody forced us to be here. You and I looked at each other and said, let's do it. Is there any regret now that we're here and doing this on a Monday of Labor Day when we could still be asleep or doing whatever the hell else people do on days that they don't work? Do you regret it?
Of course not. Where else would I rather be?
Liar. 615-737-1045 is the number. No, we're happy to have you guys here. Jump in at any point. Phone lines or FNM Bank chat is where you can do so. Vols take care of business, not particularly close. We understood that Virginia was going to come in there and kind of, I don't want to say lay down, but after a while, 49-13, like they were just getting run roughshod all over the place, and not even that particularly crisp of a performance from Joe Milton. Upon rewatch, it was funny because we were watching that game in a bar, and I guess I wasn't paying attention while we were at the bar to every snap of Milton, because every time I looked up, he had a pretty nice throw, or there were drops from Ramel Keaton. Ramel Keaton had two in particular I thought that were pretty bad. Maybe Milton throws the second one a little harder than he needs to, but, you know, you got to catch that ball from Joe Milton. Either way. So I look up and I'm like, okay, Joe Milton, I know it's Virginia. Looks all right. Like, I don't have any problems with Joe Milton, and I immediately get dragged on social media because, like, you're not watching the game. You're not watching the same game. And then I go back and rewatch it last night. After the fact, I'm like, oh, yeah, he didn't look as good as I thought he did watching every third snap from the bar. But it was cool to drive across the Jefferson Street Bridge, driving from my place downtown to go meet Lucas and Bert and everybody's significant others over in East Nashville. It was cool to see the stands at Nissan Stadium. I don't ever get to see what that looks like while there's a game going on from the outside. And, you know, nothing against Titans fans. It doesn't always look that way during Titans games, even though I'm there. But to see a capacity crowd, a record-setting crowd, and I was crossing the Jefferson Street Bridge right after, I think it was the first of the 4 Dylan Sampson touchdowns. Who did he throw the swing pass to?
Yeah, Sampson.
Sampson, yeah.
Sampson scored 4.
It was the first of the Dylan Sampson touchdowns, and the place was going crazy. It was cool to see. I was listening to Bob Kessling on the call on the Vol Network as I was driving over to meet Lucas and Bert, and to see the stadium go nuts from the outside, that was pretty unique. So, looking at the Vols, you know, obviously they handle business, right? They come out, they put on a show in front of the crowd. It was a hotter day as it wore along. 11 a.m. kickoffs are going to do that. A lot of you soldiered through. It was wild to see the amount of orange crossing the pedestrian bridge after the fact. I'm sure I saw many of you downtown after the fact. But the biggest takeaways from Tennessee, defensively, you were looking for any sign of, okay, if the former Monmouth quarterback, Muskett, if Muskett can come out there and make a couple of plays against the Tennessee defense, that's the kind of thing that at least I was looking at and paying attention to say, okay, biggest question mark I have about this football team heading into this season is their defense. Has the secondary been improved enough? Has the pass rush in front of them improved enough to take a little pressure off the secondary? Can they don't have to be outright dominant, but can they hold serve against a team that is clearly inferior. And I came away feeling reassured that there were no coverage busts against a team where there shouldn't be. There was no pass rush issues against an offensive line that there shouldn't have been issues against. They did the thing that they needed to do, which is take care of business and basically hold them underwater the entire game the way that they needed to do against an opponent like Virginia. That was basically the thing that I went in trying to learn the most about Tennessee. Where is the defense right now? Where are we now? I feel like I ask that question of our guests a lot of times just to kind of, in any storyline or any timeline, where are we now? And with the Tennessee defense, I know it's Virginia. I know it's week 1. There will be stiffer. I don't know if Austin Peay is going to be the stiffer competition that they get tested with here in the next week. But as we get ready for SEC play, can I see signs of improvement, foundational building blocks for a defensive unit that I can trust a little more than I did with the team a year ago? And I felt largely reassured by that.
They needed Virginia to look totally overmatched on offense, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
Virginia was not able to move the ball whatsoever, especially throughout the entirety of the first half. A couple of long drives towards the end of the game there where it's out of hand. Tennessee rotating a lot defensively, but Friday, I told you I needed to see Tennessee's front seven not just win up front, but wreak havoc, just completely dominate, and that's what happened. James Pierce had himself a day. Tyler Barron had a day, and they were winning all their one-on-one matchups. Virginia just unable to get any push up front whatsoever.
Now, Tyler Barron, this I think I was listening to. I left where we were watching at it about, towards the end of the third quarter. Tyler Barron, what's his status? Is he, because I know he was down on the field for a period of time. It didn't look like anything that was going to cost him considerably, but I do know that he got a little banged up in that game.
Yeah, haven't seen any injury updates from that game, so we'll kind of have to monitor it this week. But he had himself a day. A couple of sacks, couple of TFLs. Tennessee had 10 players contribute to the TFL number on Saturday. So 10 players that had at least half a tackle for loss.
And so, ground game, not something you're concerned about. Offensive line, how that fares against better competition, we'll have to wait 2 weeks to really determine that. But for the most part, feel pretty good about the Tennessee experience on Saturday. The quarterback, we're going to spend more time specifically on Joe Milton's individual strengths, weaknesses from Saturday against Virginia at noon today. 615-737-1045 is how you can jump in with your opinion. They were trying Virginia at least was trying to get upfield later in the third as I was listening to the broadcast, but the thing that kept beating them back, basically, you mentioned James Pierce. You did not mention Amari Thomas.
Yeah.
Amari Thomas had himself a great game. James Pierce is somebody who I'm watching very closely this year because, I don't want to have to say this every time I pay a compliment or say something positive about the performance on Saturday. I don't want to have to couch it every time by saying it is Virginia. But Pierce, as a technical pass rusher, with the moves that he was showing, with the way that he was able to go at that right tackle with a plan, and make the life of Musket a living hell for the vast majority of the game, I felt as good about James Pierce as I did any defender on that team. Like, who are we looking at this year as being kind of the foundational pieces of that defense? It's Barron and Pierce, right?
Well, you needed one of, if not both, James Pierce and or Caleb Herring to take a big leap this year as one of your kind of crown jewels when it comes from a recruiting perspective on what you've brought in with the pass rush. So early returns show that could be James Pierce because you have a nice blend of veteran guys that have had a ton of snaps in their career, Roman Harrison, Tyler Barron, and the ones that you need to see a leap from, like a James Pierce, who has all of the tools and looked the part. And then you just need depth, and you just need quality snaps across the board from your defensive line, which I think you're going to get this season. You mentioned Omari Thomas. He's kind of the bell cow of that group. But Omar Norman, Elijah Simmons did not play in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to play a big role in that defensive line rotation for Tennessee. So the front seven has to be the most encouraging facet of what you saw on Saturday. Maybe it's not. Maybe some people walk away, liking more of what they saw from Tennessee's run game against the decently stout Virginia front seven. That's kind of where Virginia hangs its hat. But for me, it's got to be Tennessee's defense, specifically the front seven. Virginia, you know how many total yards Virginia had in their first 7 possessions of this game?
First 7 possessions?
7 possessions combined.
No.
4. Virginia couldn't do anything. They couldn't move anything up front.
And that's how it should be, right? This is... We talked about what can you learn against an opponent like Virginia when you're clearly and obviously going to overmatch them. There have to be some takeaways, right? We can't talk about it and, largely the week leading up to a game because it's game week for the Titans too. So now we have the Vols and the Titans back in our lives officially as of this upcoming weekend. But against, we're basically doing an infomercial to get you from game to game, all right? So there's only so many things that we can say about the Vols in Virginia. But there are things against a week 1 opponent that you have to be able to see, you have to be able to learn, or you at least have to find out more about. And I think of the places that we have question marks, the biggest question marks about this Tennessee roster this year, at least one of those is answered. Now, the bigger one is Milton. And I can't help myself, Lucas. I got a little smile came across my face when they put Nico in for that final possession.
You started hearing chants.
I was looking around. I was saying, all right, which one of you is going to do it? Who's going to be the first one to call for Milton's job? Because you've seen a.
Well, wait, what? What are you talking about? What are you even talking about? Came in and threw 1 6-yard pass.
That's right.
My goodness.
That's right. Which one of you? So, Lucas, Charlie Burris is not going to be on the radio show today. I'm going to figure out something to do with Charlie on primetime. I love your brethren, all right? There is somebody out there listening to this radio show today that looked around after Nico Iamaleava threw 1 pass for 6 yards and said that needs to be our quarterback this year. There is somebody out there. Don't you sit there and deny that.
I'm not denying it. It doesn't mean we need to give any credence to it. Like, yes, the crazies,
I can laugh at it. Yes.
The crazies are out there. But
I'm not giving credence to it.
That would be the most ridiculous, laughable thing that you could possibly take away from Saturday's
All I'm saying
game.
is who? Which one of you? You're out there. Call the radio show. I dare you. Coming up next, we'll continue to talk about takeaways from Tennessee's 42-13 victory at Nissan Stadium over Virginia. I mentioned Charlie Burris. He's a colleague of mine at A to Z Sports. There was you want to talk about volunteer conspiracy theories? There's a great one we got to tell you about coming up next. Welcome back, 615-737-1045. That's how you jump in. We're talking Vols this morning, 49-13, a rout. Even though felt like a lot of points left on the board. Can I look at 49-13 and say, could have been better? Could have been a little better. Am I allowed to do that today?
There were points left on the board.
Okay.
100%.
I didn't want to be unfair.
I think Joe Milton's stat line would have been a little bit padded by an 80-yard touchdown pass that was dropped by Ramel Keaton.
It was funny to watch you and watch your fellow volunteer fans around the bar because, it's what I imagine it to be like in the act, and then all of a sudden you just come to a screeching halt and there's no climax anywhere to be found and you're just sitting there. Oh.
Why does it always come back to that for you?
What sex?
Yeah, every time, man. Every time.
I don't know.
What is wrong with you? We're just watching a football game.
Boy, okay.
But yes, on that play, yes.
Because the rest of the time, you spent the game moaning and groaning as if you were somebody who is receiving pleasure from watching the football game, okay? That's why I'm comparing it to sex for you. And also it's Memorial Day, or Labor Day, either whichever holiday it is, whatever one. The vast majority. If I can get away with sex jokes today is the day for me to do it.
That would be the play to make those jokes because that ball was so picture perfect. I mean, that traveled. Joe uncorked that thing from he was standing close to the 10.
It was beautiful,
close to his own 10-yard line, and that is hitting Ramel's hands at the 20. Of Virginia, yeah, Ramel Keaton got to hang on to that one. I was a little rattled by the number changes. Was not prepared, even though I had kind of monitored them all offseason.
Right, because you were ready to curse out whoever 9 was, and then you couldn't figure out who 9 was.
Yeah, it took me a minute. So Ramel 9, Dylan Sampson wearing 6 was doing his best Alvin Kamara impression with Alvin Kamara on hand to watch that game at Nissan Stadium. And who else? Jalen Wright wearing 0. Some of those number changes threw me off a little bit, but I think we're used to it by now. But yes. There were points left on the board, certainly. I mean, that's the most glaring example. But Tennessee at the end of the first quarter is up 7-0. I mean, those first 7 possessions I brought up to you where Virginia has a total of 4 yards. Tennessee's up 7-0 after those.
Yeah.
The defense was doing its job. I mean, they miss a chip shot field goal in the process. Virginia does. But, yeah, there were some miscues early. Punt return, D. Williams, nice return to get Tennessee into great field position to double the lead and fumbles the football. So there were miscues, and the offense did have to kind of grow into the game a little bit. The offensive line, Milton after that drop ball from Keaton missed a few throws after that, but otherwise I think they were able to grow out of those mistakes pretty seamlessly and then just roll for the rest of the day.
You can interact with the show in the F&M Bank chat where Trippin' Titan says this discussion is uncomfortable as usual. Well, listen, we're here on a day that we shouldn't be. Whatever you get from us today, you're just going to have to deal with it. It's kind of like Joe Milton out there. Whatever you get today, you got to deal with it. And again, we're going to spend more time specifically on Milton in the noon hour. You'll hear from Mike Vrabel. Titans don't have a full-on practice today, but there is media availability as it is game week. Titans and Saints this coming Sunday. So more good than bad, obviously. 49-13. The result is overwhelming. Virginia overmatched the largest crowd in the history of Nissan Stadium for a football game, which is funny because it's not like that's the first time that Tennessee's played there.
No, Music City Bowl multiple times. I remember 2015, the season opener there against Bowling Green. That was Alvin Kamara's coming out party in that game. So obviously there is a certain hype and feeling around this program that there hasn't been in a long time, coming off an 11-win season and the hopes to maybe reach those heights again in 2023. But it did look like a rocking crowd out there, like not even the remote guise of a neutral site game. I mean, it was orange and white to the max.
Yeah.
Completely. Every inch of that stadium was orange and white.
I was in an Uber on my way. I guess the game had let out right as I was hitting First Avenue. I was getting ready to get dropped off on Broadway. And there I saw just a sea of orange, understandably. And I'm coming down. I guess that would be heading south on First. So the pedestrian bridge is in my view from the Uber, and just a wash of orange coming across the bridge. And I see one sad Virginia fan. He's by himself.
They've got a big fan base now.
No. I'm not disputing that. And there were more Virginia fans scattered, I'm sure, and it doesn't help that they're a little bit of a different tinge of orange.
Yes.
They've got orange and brown going
That's fair.
on. But there was just one guy. He was by himself. He was walking. If I'm going south on first, he's going north. And this guy is walking by himself, almost head in hands, just looking around. I don't know where his friends were. I don't know if he had any, if he brought any with him. I don't know if he left by himself in shame, whatever the case may be. It was comedically hilarious to me.
So other than Tennessee taking over Nissan Stadium, what if you come away most encouraged with something, because obviously it's not Joe Milton, what would it be for you?
Oh, well, I mean, I think it's the thing that we opened the show with, his defense.
The front seven?
But, I mean, if I had to pick a 1B, Dylan Sampson.
I think just the run game in general.
Sure.
I mean, because that was what Tennessee needed to do and what was expected to happen defensively. We understood the struggles Virginia had on offense, breaking in a new quarterback transfer from Monmouth, and offensive line struggles. Like, that was something that just needed to happen. But Virginia comes in with the front seven that's very stout. Yes, missing their best player, but Tennessee ran through them with ease the entire game. And Dylan Sampson, my favorite thing about this running back room is I think the way everybody complements each other. Jalen Wright seems like the best player in that room. Mm-hmm. I think he needs to get more touches. Jalen Wright seems like a 1,000-yard rusher. He had 115 yards on 12 carries. Jabari Small is kind of the veteran, he's going to get the tough yards. And Dylan Sampson's that scat back that can catch the ball out of the backfield. And then that's not even including Cam Selden. That'll be interesting to see how he fits into that rotation. So I think that might actually be my most encouraging factor coming out of that game is how dominant Tennessee was running the football without Cooper Mays in there at center and just the depth of the running back room that they have not yet had in the Heupel era.
Virginia, on the other side, finished with 95 rushing yards. It was basically after the first-team defense had been pulled. Mm-hmm. It felt like that was...
Their lead rusher had 39 yards.
It felt humane. Humane is the way that I would put it. But I think that when you watch that running back rotation, it's always funny to hear people talk about Tennessee who watch them versus people who talk about that offense before they may watch, you may watch them in the draft process, right? If you're NFL people and you're scouting Tennessee volunteer players and you go and you start watching the Tennessee offense and you say, all right, this is probably the most pure version of an air raid without Mike Leach, obviously, RIP, in the picture anymore. Josh Heupel probably runs the most pure version of an air raid offense in college football right now. But to run a almost pure version of an air raid offense does not mean that you're throwing it every time. Tennessee's offense, their version of the air raid, is predicated off the ability to spread you out and also run the football. Like they are going to, that is the larger identity of Tennessee. It's the thing that makes me feel better about Joe Milton, to be honest with you, is because Joe is going to miss. There are going to be some missed opportunities. I'm going into this is year 6 of him as a college quarterback. He is as finished a product as he's probably going to be. Any hype that you want to put around him preseason about Anthony Richardson comparisons because of size and arm strength and things like that, don't do it. Joe Milton is going to be an above-average quarterback in college football this year because of the system that he plays in. I don't think he's going to be as productive as Hendon Hooker. I don't think he's as precise as Hendon Hooker. And I think that while Milton has more high-ceiling attributes, if you can't operate the system with efficiency, it almost negates a lot of those high-ceiling attributes that he brings to the table. But the thing that gives me greater confidence about him within that system is that they can lean on that stable of running backs. And the offensive line, kind of different versions of that we're going to see, obviously. Is it Ollie Connolly, the backup center?
Ollie Lane.
Ollie Lane. Who's Ollie Connolly? There's a Connolly.
You made that up.
Okay, it's entirely possible. I tried with the preview magazines this year. There's only so much I can retain. But so Ollie Lane, backup center, playing in this game, was looking for kind of any speed bumps that working with a backup center might present. Didn't really seem like there was much difficulty much difficulty in the quarterback-center exchange portion of things. Felt like more of the fault was on Milton for missing throws. He had drops. But the thing that reassures me the most is that ground game. And again, they have to do it against SEC competition. Virginia's got a defense that they will lean on more than their offense this year. But that is still not, it's not like a top-flight defense in the ACC or anything like that. So you will wait till, I guess, the earliest opportunity to test that theory would be Florida?
Yeah, I think so. And after, it's week 1. But after one game with each team, I think you go into Florida. You have to go in and beat Florida. You got to go win that game. Yeah. You have to take care of business in that game.
After the way that Florida looked,
yes.
Yeah.
There's no excuses.
I don't care that it's on the road. I don't care they're at Utah. I don't care that Utah's super physical.
Haven't won in Gainesville in 20 years. You have to go in and beat Florida. And if you don't do it convincingly, then people are going to be talking about that game kind of in a concerning fashion, I think, the following week. Obviously, the win is the win. Just go get the dub. You're going to the swamp. Any win there is good. But at this point, I think Tennessee needs to go, and I'm not going to say just flat out rout Florida and just completely blow them out, but that game needs to be a convincing victory. 100%.
Lucci Aiden says, I hope we Ollie Lane Florida this year and stop going at Milton. You have had some pretty bad days at work, sure. But I have a microphone. Milton doesn't. And also, Milton needs to be better. Here's the thing. Okay, go ahead.
Joe has had he's going to be able to lean on that run game like he did against. Here's my thing about what we saw from Joe on Saturday. We saw that against Vanderbilt last year in his first start of 2022. Tennessee was completely dominant running the football. Joe missed some throws in that game. Yeah. Against Clemson, Joe had a really nice performance against Clemson. He did. Offense also stalled out a lot.
He had an efficient performance against Clemson.
I feel like it was a little less efficient than people want to remember. He was 19 of 28 in that game. Tennessee punted like 7 times in that game.
For Milton, that to me is efficient.
Sure, and that's a really good Clemson defense they were playing. Mm-hmm. One of the better defenses in the country. Tennessee ran the ball well in that game. Tennessee dominant in the run game. On Saturday, I feel like we've seen a similar Joe Milton in the Vanderbilt game last year to Clemson to Virginia on Saturday. Like, that's probably the Joe we're going to get. And I was really fascinated to see how they would utilize him in the run game. And they did that. He had 9 carries. Flat out ran over some guys.
Mm-hmm.
Had 2.
Oh my God, the stiff arm.
Yeah. It was, he's like, I'm going to juke left. Oh no, you got me there. I'm going to juke right. No, you go, okay, I'm just going to go through you here.
Do you think he's too big to juke that way? Maybe he heard the Richardson comparison too. He's like, I can move a little bit. Yeah. Kept trying to juke, couldn't juke. Just said, all right, I'm bigger than you. I'm going to run over you.
Yeah, and he did. And he's going to be able to do that this season. But yes, I feel like that's the Joe Milton you're going to get. He has yet to throw an interception in his Tennessee career. He has not thrown a single interception in orange and white.
What?
So
is that a stat?
That's a thing.
What?
Yes.
You couldn't wait till Wednesday for that?
He has never thrown an interception.
Or Friday, maybe?
So
that's a mind-blowing stat.
So we're talking about like multiple seasons now of Milton being like this is his 3rd season at Tennessee. He has never thrown an interception. So yes, he missed some throws, but I just before we dive into Joe at noon, and I am interested to hear your thoughts. Try not to put it in the frame mindset of what's an NFL scout looking at.
No. I hope you'll notice that I haven't done that yet today. I got close.
I haven't had to use the water bottle on you.
The spray bottle?
Yes, but just keep that in mind. The question here about Joe is how many football games can he win for Tennessee? Can he help Tennessee win this year? Not what's going to move him into the first round of the draft.
No, and that's not how I'm looking at it right now. There will be time for that. We'll have all offseason for that. My thing with Milton, and again, like I said, we're going to spend some more time on this. We're going to spend a whole segment on this at noon today. Can I learn anything that I didn't know about Joe Milton this season? Can I learn anything that I didn't already know? Now, the interception thing, I did not realize. And, he has been the starting quarterback in spurts for Tennessee. So we understand that that's a different kind of sample size. But it's not like this system lends itself to turnovers. Because when he misses way past everybody, right? Like, it's not like the DB's coming down with a Joe Milton miss because the receiver can't even come down with a Joe Milton miss. I think that's while I do say that tongue in cheek, I do think that there's some truth to that. Like, if you're gonna miss, just it's the opposite of why it's not the opposite of a quarterback getting rid of it. It's just getting rid of it in a different way. I think though that the thing that we came away with, understanding it's week 1, what can we learn? Who can we learn it about? And how soon will we get to see their depth? It took Tennessee longer to put the game well out of reach than I think everybody would have liked it to. The result was still 49-13. So while you may say that we're nitpicking today or that we're being overly critical, I don't think that this is overly critical to look at it and say, all right, what did I know about Joe Milton previously? Going to miss some opportunities. Can he correct that against an inferior opponent? Looks like he's still going to have some missed opportunities. So is this a trend that is going to continue throughout the course of the season? We'll see. Can they find ways to mitigate it? We will also see. It seems like they have the tools in place, the defense and the running game to be able to do so, and we'll table the Joe Milton conversation for the time being.
I think if you had told any Tennessee fan before the Virginia game, look, offense going to take a quarter or two to grow into the game. There's going to be some miscues. You're missing your leader, your Marshall on the offensive line at center in Cooper Mays. Milton's going to miss a couple of throws, maybe a turnover here and there, but they're going to grow into the game and almost put up 50 and run away in a rout. I think most Tennessee fans would say, yeah, that's kind of what I expect.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
See, I told you there'd be one. I told you. Taylor H. in the F&M Bank chat. Yawn, Milton doesn't last the season as starter. My hot take. I told you. There was one of them out there. That was the guy. That was the guy that saw Nico throw a 6-yard pass.
Him.
Taylor H. in the F&M Bank chat. That was the guy that saw Nico throw a 6-yard pass and say, that guy, that's who I want. Speaking of overreactions, week 1, college or pro, is always full of them. We have now a full sample size of week 1 college football overreactions to get to. We'll do so coming up next. We got week 1 in college football in the books. Get back to the Vols here a little bit. Mike Felder going to be back on the radio show. Been a minute since we've had Michael. Looking forward to getting his X's and O's insights on week 1 across the NCAA. So how do you want to do this? We're going to do this the next 2 Mondays, right? We're going to do some overreactions. You're just going to throw them at me and see what sticks?
Yeah, let's overreact. This is what we do. It's Monday after week 1. This
I've
is
already
our
been
whole
accused
thing.
of it so far.
Yes.
I've already been accused of it.
Let's see, because I was trying to think of what we overreacted to most after week 1 in 2022, and I kept coming back to Florida. Florida beating Utah. Anthony Richardson topping Heisman charts after week 1, even though he didn't throw a touchdown pass in that game, the win over Utah. So I was thinking, what is the Florida overreaction of 2023? First one I'm going to throw at you. We'll keep it in the Sunshine State. Florida State headed to the playoff after routing LSU 45-24. They dominated LSU in the second half. Tigers just folded, letting mistakes just impact one after the other, and Florida State cruises after what looked like at halftime was going to be a really fun game and fight to the finish. No, LSU folds. Florida State moves on. FSU, congratulations. You're headed to the college football playoff.
Well, is the overreaction... I mean, LSU obviously getting drummed the way that they did in Orlando last night is notable. Like that, Florida State, I don't know that Florida State is going to look that good all year long. The ACC is going to be fascinating this year to see how they kind of work their way through it. And it's clear that Florida State under Mike Norvell has taken the steps truly needed. Like, where do you think are they going to put out a poll today? AP poll?
Yes,
I
we
don't know
should.
if they do that on Labor Day.
Oh, I can't remember if we get one today or tomorrow, but it'd be interesting to see where Tennessee lands too, if the Vols creep up at all from that number 12 spot.
I'd be curious, but like, where do we think Florida State is in the top 4 as of the next poll based on that result against LSU? One would imagine.
Yes, it will be interesting to see what happens with Ohio State.
Yeah.
After a not so encouraging performance from that offense.
Eat it, Vrabel. The Hoosiers.
Against your Hoosiers.
I didn't see a snap. People kept coming up to me today or on Saturday asking me, are they going to cover the 30.5? I was like, who? Who are you referring to? Notre Dame played last weekend. Well, although they did play TSU this weekend, and that was an unpleasant experience for Eddie George and crew, but I'm sure there was a payday resulting of it. So, overreacting to LSU and Florida State.
Let's say the overreaction is Florida State's going to the playoff, LSU's not.
I don't think that's an overreaction. Because Jaden Daniels, why are we buying stock in LSU? 1, a lot of veterans returning on the team. 2, Brian Kelly. 3, Jaden Daniels. And I don't know how you'd stack them, at least preseason, right? Prior to last night's football game. So a lot of returning talent, coaching staff that you trust, even though last night he was funny at the podium, man. He's talking about we thought we were Georgia while Jaden Daniels is sitting next to him.
I've got it.
And the side eye from Jaden Daniels. You can't see it because this is an audio medium primarily, but let's hear from Brian Kelly at the podium.
You've got to play this game for 4 quarters with the mentality, and we just did not. For some reason, we thought we were somebody else. We thought we were the 2-time national champion Georgia Bulldogs or something. I don't know what we thought, but we were mistaken.
We thought we were the 2. Where is that being played across Athens today?
That's
everywhere.
Got to delight
Everywhere.
Georgia fans. But yeah, that was disappointing from LSU. Year 2 of the Brian Kelly era after the start they had in year 1. And what they were supposed to bring back on defense, I know they were without Mason Smith in this game, but I was not a fan of how they utilized Harold Perkins in this game.
That was one of the biggest talking points on the broadcast from Herb Street last night, is the deployment of Harold Perkins as an off-ball linebacker and kind of trying to do different things with him. They were rushing him off the edge in particular. And the results weren't there the way that you expected. Like Harold Perkins, we came into the season, overreaction. I came into this season looking at Harold Perkins like, are you my Will Anderson this year? Are you the guy that I'm going to have to pay attention to week in and week, not have to, but pay attention to week in, week out, because you're going to end up being the most dominant defensive player in the best league in college football this year? Are you the guy? And last night he wasn't the guy. And Florida State had a good plan. I thought the way that that I'm blanking on the quarterback's name for Florida State,
Jordan Travis.
Jordan Travis managed some adversity in like the first half of the game, because the LSU defense was pretty impressive in the first half of the game. Even if Perkins wasn't, like, they were making great stops. They were they were holding Florida State to really poor field position. They had some special teams plays that went awry. LSU with the special teams. Oh my God, the drop punts. When will it end?
Yeah. And it felt like the mistakes were stacking on top. Like, it felt like LSU was letting those mistakes affect them. Drops, turnovers, and especially in the second half.
And Jordan Travis did not.
No. And Travis, he made some crazy plays running away from that LSU defense and had some drops that didn't help him either.
The way that he responded was one of the things that impressed me the most out of the game. I think it was Jordan Travis. Now, I don't think it's an overreaction to say that Florida State is more likely to make the playoff now than LSU, just because one loss in the SEC.
Oh, no, it's not. That's not the question. Because, sure, it's easy to say that after one team's 1-0, one's 0-1. The overreaction is, all right, Florida State, their path to the playoff in place. They're there. LSU, you're out. Not happening. That's the overreaction.
Florida State's is, yeah. So I'm out on that overreaction. I still think Florida State, they're not going to look that good against the rest of the ACC. It's an SEC opponent. It's week one. Week one results are wonky. Let's get to some other ones.
We're going to see. We're up against it here, so I think we should keep it on LSU, Florida State.
Okay.
Because we're going to see Florida State play Clemson. Top 10 Clemson, September 23rd. We're going to see Clemson for the first time tonight against Duke. Mm-hmm. That is currently the only other ranked opponent on Florida State's schedule. They're going to have to play Florida, obviously. They're going to have to play Miami. They get that game at home. So you're looking at a real possibility of 11-1 type of season for Florida State. Undefeated is on the table. And for LSU, the margin of error is obviously so incredibly thin in the SEC West. So you don't feel good about their chances after week one. Harold Perkins had a career-high 28 snaps in coverage last night. He rushed the passer 7 times.
I didn't like it.
We talked about this guy as, like you said, the Will Anderson of 2023. Mm-hmm. Could be the most dominant pass rusher this season. They didn't even utilize him in that way last night.
It's like when the Cowboys get cute with Micah Parsons. And Micah Parsons is a different – I'm not comparing Harold Perkins to Micah Parsons. But, like, when they play Micah Parsons off ball because he is a superior athlete and he can make some plays, as opposed to letting him just rush the passer and do the thing that he is, Hall of Fame caliber great at.
Just go hit the quarterback.
Just go hit the quarterback. Like, you don't have to – don't get crazy with it. Put your best players in position to succeed, and I felt like LSU did Harold Perkins a disservice that way. We will have more week one overreactions. Mike Vrabel, though, it is game week for the Titans. Titans at Saints. I'll fly down to New Orleans on Saturday. Meanwhile, Mike Vrabel's going to get you ready for game week with a press conference you'll hear coming up next.
It is 11 o'clock. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Week 1 of the college football season got underway this weekend. Tennessee routing Virginia at Nissan Stadium 49-13. The Vols outrushing the Cavaliers 287-95. It is officially week 1 of the 2023 NFL season. The Tennessee Titans head to New Orleans to take the Saints on Sunday. Head coach Mike Vrabel currently at the podium to talk about it. Kevin Byard and Aaron Brewer will meet with the media today as well. You can hear it live right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Keep it tight here because Titans head coach Mike Vrabel's already at the podium. It's game week, so we'll go live to St. Thomas Sports Park.
Comfortable with, but also I think that there's an element to what the Saints have done and will do. But I would imagine that there's some things that Derek's like through his career that he would want to put in there.
I think Gibson was still a work in progress. We talked last time. Is that what do you like about him, and specifically maybe a 3-4-6? What's good with him?
A work in progress. Well, I mean, I think it's just a veteran. It's a guy that's played in this league, who's produced in this league, with a certain skill set, and how he develops or how he, acclimates himself to our program and what we're doing. And as soon as he can determine a role, well, then we'll see where we go from there.
Bringing in a guy on defense being on defense make it easier for a guy to get up to speed since you're kind of chasing the quarterback and things like that?
Yeah, but there's also still responsibilities that you have to know and alignments that you have to understand, and whether you're working with somebody else or games, and so if it was just a base rush and we just lined him up out there on one of the tackles, that would probably be easy to do, but then there's just a lot more things that he'll have to know here, hopefully sooner rather than later.
What are you going to be looking at this week with Trey when it comes to deciding if he'll be ready?
Always how they respond in practice, and he'll do more today, and he's added more each day, I would say, since last week, and was diligent in his rehab and worked hard to get back. So again, we have a little longer week. I have to be conscious that, we're working our execution throughout the week, but also, being mindful that it is a longer week and that we're ready to go for Sunday.
Still building on something you said a couple weeks ago about covering kicks being the hardest thing, but you guys
blocking for him. The kickoff return. We can cover kicks. I could cover a kickoff.
Okay, yeah, all right, never mind.
That blocking thing, right, where you're dropping back and guys are hauling 20 miles an hour at you. That's the hardest skill, when you're dropping back and you have to, turn around, plant, see R3, loop behind R4, going to get them, backside block, all those single blocks on the kickoff return is what's difficult and what shows up throughout the league, right? Whether it's missing a block or a holding call or any of those things. So that would be, to me, one of the tougher skills.
To be so good at the other side of it, is that, I don't want to say is there a frustration there, but don't you learn one from the other?
No, because it's a completely different, spatial, where these are linebackers and safeties. The majority of them, sometimes there's a running back out there where you're going forward and you're attacking, and it's covering a kickoff is like a 40-yard pass rush, right? You're trying not to lose, speed. You're trying to stick and avoid, as opposed to now you're playing offensive lineman with a lot of different space and a fast player. So just because you can cover a kickoff, I wouldn't say that necessarily translates to being able to do it. Now you have to rep it and understanding how the guy is going to try to avoid based on your leverage or where the kick is, some of that may be able to help, but it's still getting it done without grabbing a guy or tackling him.
Is that why you like to pop up inside the 5, putting the pressure on them to do something that's very difficult to do?
Well, if you can cover them, I mean, if you have confidence with your group and being able to cover kickoffs, certainly be able to pin them inside the 20. Every yard matters. So we'll see how it goes.
You know what you've seen up to this point from your guys in practice and in the preseason. Now that it's game week, what do you want to see from this group this week?
Well, to continue to build momentum all the way up until the game through our energy that we show up with work today, like we have so far, through our execution at practice. That's what the whole goal is to continue to build momentum throughout the week.
How much does it change things for Jack and Aziz to not have Alvin out there for the Saints?
Well, for any of us, I mean, it's a matchup. He's a talented player. Whether they run the football with him or throw it to him, create plays in space. Saw it all over the preseason when he played. Screens or option routes or vertical routes, and so I think that would fall on everybody.
Superdome is one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. With this group, you haven't really done that, obviously, in the preseason. Are you just interested? How do you prepare them for it, and how much are you?
Well, we'll try to prepare for it and being able to, handle the road environment. Week 1, with being excited to go out there and play, but also understanding that how we communicate and come off the football and work with somebody next to us and everybody's communication and the operation. So certainly will be important for us to practice it.
What do you tell, I guess, the first-year guys about the bump in intensity and heightened awareness on everything in week 1? Or maybe from the preseason to the regular season, just the change?
We'll get there towards the end of the week. I'll have conversations with them, and those players will have different conversations with them.
Did you guys decide on a number 2 yet? Number 2 quarterback?
No, not yet.
How about captains, Mike?
Let you know tomorrow.
With the quarterbacks, just kind of what do you want to see in practice before making that decision?
I think a lot of it is based on the game plan, about how we feel like who would step in there and help us. And, Will's been out a little bit, but excited to get him back this week and continue with Malik's maturity. And we'll kind of see where it goes at the end of the week.
What made the Saints so good on defense?
Well, they're sound. They have a very good scheme. They got very good players. They have veteran players that have continued to produce at a high level for a number of years. Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, Honey Badger, Lattimore, mixed in with some younger players. Werner's, excellent player. Marcus May has been a very productive safety. So they put pressure on the quarterback. Demario does a great job on third down in that role, and Cam Jordan is constantly there. Granderson and Turner, hard chargers, a lot of length on the outside. So they're sound, and they have the ability to put pressure on your quarterback.
You've got a guy like Dennis. He's a consistent track record of what he's done defensively over the years. Do you feel like you pretty much know what they're going to do, or when it's week 1, do you also expect several wrinkles? That maybe
we'll see how the game evolves. I'm sure they'll have some things that they've wanted to add over the course of the offseason. But they have been very successful in what they do. Mixed coverages, and they're pretty proficient. Post safety man, post safety zone, split safety. So you'll see all of those, and they do a nice job with them.
How much more well suited is Aaron now, and comfortable in the middle? And what's your kind of expectation for him as the pivot and kind of the center of the whole thing?
Well, I think he's very comfortable. I think that he's taken leadership role in that room and communicating up at the line of scrimmage and working with the quarterbacks, and I think that's something that we expected, and hopefully we'll continue to be a great fit for him.
Have you liked what you've seen from Nick Folk since he got here?
Yeah, he hasn't kicked all that much. I mean, well, again, I like what Nick is as a person and as a professional, and has a plan for how much he wants to kick as a veteran player that's kicked a lot in his career.
Harold's history is not coming off the field a lot for you guys, but you've got more numbers at that position. Do you anticipate trying to manage his snaps a little bit more, maybe as he comes back here?
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, right? I mean, I think that as we get more players that can rotate and sub in there and be productive, then I think that's something that could happen.
In my opinion, what are some of Byard's strengths?
Well, I think just his comfort level, running the offense, his operation, decisiveness, knowing where to go with the football. He's athletic enough to avoid pass rush, but also scrambles to throw. And so that's his ability to see the post snap movement, rotation, know where he wants to go with the football, and being decisive.
When you look back on it, did you learn anything from the past couple of years in your preparation for week 1? And will you do anything at all different this week and trying to be ready for week 1?
It's just about being sound. I think it's about not chasing ghosts. Yeah, you can prepare for a lot of different things, but you also have to commit to something and practice it, and then also be willing to adjust and be ready to adjust based on what you're seeing and how the game's going.
Guys, good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
That is Titans head coach Mike Vrabel at the podium, getting you ready for Titans and Saints coming up this Sunday in New Orleans. 615-737-1045. That's the number if you want to react. We'll talk some more Titans, of course, later in the week. Coming up next, though, Mike Felder of Stadium and Bleacher Report going to join us. We'll do some X's and O's. Week 1 overreactions from the world of college football. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. The Gambling Clinic is a great resource, especially this time of year as more of us get into sports gambling. They want to make sure that you're doing it in a safe and healthy way. The vast majority of people gamble for fun without any issues whatsoever, but about 5% of people report having issues as a result of gambling, whether that's getting into arguments at home over it or spending too much money, financially overextending yourself. The Gambling Clinic is a great resource for you if you can identify with any of those issues. Their goal is to complete 8 to 10 weekly individual sessions with someone trained to help with gambling problems and addiction. It begins with working with someone to build a clear, accurate history of each person's gambling and the harms related to it. They are gambling neutral as an entity. They're not there to discourage you. They just want to make sure that you have the healthy habits in place to identify where your problems may arise. TheGamblingClinic.com is where you go to find out more information. That's TheGamblingClinic.com. This project is funded by the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services. Welcome back to the show. Mike Felder is going to be on here in just a little bit. As always, a good time when we can get him back involved, do some X's and O's breakdowns of the weekend that was. Not quite concluded. Still more college football tonight. As a matter of fact, is this your favorite college football weekend of the year?
Oh, when there's nothing else to talk about?
Well, there's nothing else.
But?
So there's 2 weeks, right, where the NFL does not try and suffocate college football. It's this week when there's no football and everybody in the league takes vacation, and it's the gap week between like the wild card weekend and the regular season that we have, or not the gap week between the wild card. I guess wild card weekend kind of is the gap week. But there is a break at the end of the year where college football can start to get back into the mix, basically start to reclaim the weekends once again. And this is as dominant, though, as college football gets to be nationwide. We'll say, obviously, it's huge here in the Southeast, but nationwide, this is as much airspace as college football gets to take from the NFL.
Sure, but I don't really care about nationwide. I care about Nashville, Tennessee. And here, college football gets plenty of that airspace. So I do love how it gets to be dominant, though. It gets to be the only show in town, but I'm not going to act like I'm not thrilled that NFL kicks off this weekend. More football, the better.
Sure. I am fascinated to see what this looks like in New Orleans. Week 1 wonky in college football, week 1 wonky in the NFL. I try not to read too much into any week 1 result across the board, and we'll do some more overreactions with Felder in just a little bit because we haven't talked about Colorado and TCU yet. We haven't talked about, we did mention briefly Ohio State against my mighty Indiana Hoosiers and the struggle that it was for Ohio State to handle what should have been a pretty routine day against an opponent that they were favored by 30 against. I think that when you look around at the overreactions, though, and you try and make assessments that'll carry through for the rest of the season, the first time you see these guys play, and it's just doesn't work that way very, very often. Now, of course, you can't account for injuries and things like that, but this is the most random results that we'll have all year long. So with that being said, as we continue overreactions in the world of college football, if we've overreacted or if we've named our overreaction for last night's nightcap, we'll say, in LSU and Florida State, that Florida State has a clear and obvious path to the playoff, and LSU is done, right? Dead, done, dusted, all of it.
Out of here.
So if that's one overreaction, where would you like to go with your second?
Colorado will win at least 8 regular season games after watching that performance at TCU, a 45-42 thrilling win where Travis Hunter is doing things that we have never seen in the modern era of college football.
No.
And Shedeur Sanders places himself right at the top of any Heisman board that you want to look at after week 1. That is an overreaction from watching Colorado. What would your reaction be to that? 8 wins minimum in 2023 for Colorado football.
Their schedule is hideous. No way. Listen, let me not, because Deion in the locker room afterwards was awesome, or at least what they showed us, right? Play me my theme music. It was very, very cool. And the win itself was wild. I've got friends on the TCU coaching staff, and when I tell you that people are shook as to what it is that went down between TCU and Colorado over this weekend.
That was thrilling.
People at TCU, and I'd be fascinated to talk to Mac about this at the end of the day, because I'm sure he thought the Frogs were going to be frogging too. And the Frogs, they tried. They tried in the second half. There was not much frogging to be done.
Well, no, the impressive thing is TCU kind of took that game back.
Mm-hmm.
They looked a little bit stunned, and Colorado's making plays, and Travis Hunter's doing crazy things, and Shedeur Sanders is just not missing. He's being crazy efficient, and they're just moving the ball downfield at will. But TCU kind of took that game back at home. So it makes it way more impressive that Colorado just kept going, just kept their foot on the gas, and was still able to come out with the win.
So this is from Chris Vanini at The Athletic. He covers college football. He's one of their senior writers. 2 years ago, oh, I'm sorry, that's a tweet about Florida State.
Good job. So, Colorado.
I got confused because I saw people tweeting that Florida State kind of turned its nose up.
Yeah, he's talking about the Mike Norvell turnaround.
Right.
Chris
And that-
Benitez.
I read the wrong tweet. I was looking for my Travis Hunter tweet.
Colorado hosts Nebraska in week 2.
Yeah. And we've already talked about Nebraska.
I mean,
Will Compton, by the way, who retired from the NFL last night, has not yet acknowledged that the Cornhuskers have lost. That game to Minnesota. I haven't seen him public. I think he retired specifically to get the heat off of him about Nebraska.
so winnable, right?
One would think.
Winnable.
One would think.
So how many winnable
doing the
games?
schedule?
Yes. How many winnable games are on Colorado's roster? Obviously, the TCU game's already won in the bank. Nebraska winnable. Colorado State week 3, obviously winnable. Oregon on the road week 4.
After putting up 80-something.
Yeah, that Oregon offense looks good.
I am going to say that is not a winnable game for Colorado, but I will preface that by saying I did not believe TCU to be a winnable game for them either.
Not many people did. Okay, USC. Get them at home.
The defense, I think I think they can beat USC.
Colorado's going to put a lot of points up on USC.
That's what I'm saying. But my thing is, okay, the Travis Hunter both ways situation. Is that sustainable at all?
Yeah, that's the question. By the way,
I just cannot imagine that that's the case, but I also couldn't imagine a world where they came out and won against TCU on Saturday. So what the hell do we know?
well, every takeaway from Colorado's defense will be Travis Hunter, Travis Hunter, Travis Hunter. Colorado gave up 541 yards on Saturday.
Yeah.
The defense is not good. It's
No.
probably not going to be good for the entirety of the season. The show that is Colorado football is going to be Deion, Travis Hunter playing 100 snaps a game, and Shedeur Sanders.
I think that the USC game, though, because the defense is so atrocious, unless this is that's September 30th that game is scheduled for.
Yeah, at Colorado.
They have a period of some weeks to make corrections, USC does, and try and provide some semblance of defense. But I just don't think that as long as that Grinch dude has been there forever.
It would be the definition of an overreaction to watch Colorado beat TCU. We have no idea what TCU is going to be down the road the rest of this season.
No.
And then to say Colorado is going to beat USC. So
It's not that they are going to beat USC. That's not what I'm doing here today. What I'm doing is looking around at the two opponents that USC has played, seeing the way that teams have been able to, lesser teams, inferior opponents by a mile, theoretically, have been able to put up offense on USC and saying, can Colorado do what they did to TCU against USC? I think so.
yeah. No, that performance made every conference game Colorado will play this year infinitely more interesting. And it already was interesting because Deion was involved.
So let's keep going. Arizona State, at Arizona State.
Winnable game. There's no way you can say that's not a winnable game. That'd be 4.
I don't know anything about Stanford this year. I'm not going to
They
pretend
look
like I
good.
do.
It looked good. Troy Taylor comes in, just totally revamping that offense.
Right.
David Shaw, the thing about the way David Shaw led Stanford was even when you're winning, it's just not going to be fun, not going to be a fun brand of football. So when you're losing, it's especially not fun. And Stanford looked like a completely different program. But obviously that is going to be a winnable game for Colorado at home. That's 5.
I'm going to say at UCLA is a loss.
Already looks like it's Dante Moore's football team at UCLA. Did not take long for the former blue chipper to come in and take over that offense, even though he was not named the starter going into week 1. I agree. Let's stay away from saying that might be a winnable game, but just for the sake of this argument, let's stay away from that one. So we'll keep saying 5.
I'm going to say Colorado hosting Oregon State is a loss.
I would agree with that.
Arizona at Colorado. I think that's a winnable game.
That's a winnable game.
Washington State on the road. I think that's a winnable game.
That's 7. That's 7 we're counting up. And then you're at Utah to close out the year. I mean, you can, from what we saw.
I am not going to make the case for Colorado to win 7 games this year after they won 1.
Overreacting to what we saw on Saturday, you could make the case for that Colorado to outscore Utah, for that Colorado to outscore UCLA. You can make the case. It's going to be infinitely more interesting.
Agent S. Dot in the F&M Bank chat. You can always, what's your week 1 college football overreaction? 615-737-1045. We'd be happy to have you. Tennessee related or otherwise. Agent S. Dot, you can also do so in the F&M Bank chat. says, you guys realize USC has been playing quite a few freshmen the first 2 weeks. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care at all. The defense needs to be better.
Gave up 28 to San Jose State.
The idea that anybody would, with a straight face, defend USC on defense after we have seen 2 performances of them being the exact same Lincoln Riley kind of team that I associate with Lincoln Riley in his career, which is killer on offense and just deadly in the worst possible way on defense. I have zero interest in making any kind of excuses for USC on that side of the ball until such time as they take it seriously. It's like the Titans and kickers. Until you show me that you're taking it seriously, I'm not taking you seriously. So I afford USC no benefit of the doubt on that side of the ball.
What a phenomenon Travis Hunter was.
Oh.
And then Dylan Edwards, who was committed to Notre Dame, flips to Colorado when Deion gets the job. I mean, this was a top 100, top 150 prospect coming out of high school. In his college football debut, had 5 catches for 135 yards and 3 touchdowns. Electric every time he put his hands on the football. And the way Shedeur Sanders played this game, it wasn't even like Shedeur Sanders was doing crazy, like Johnny Manziel type of stuff, some of the stuff we saw from Jordan Travis. It kind of felt like he was just throwing the ball to the open receiver. Like, I don't want to dumb down what he did in a 500-plus yard performance, but he only had a couple of throws that I was like, wow, like eye-popping. Otherwise, he's just getting the ball into the hands of playmakers.
But that's okay. Like, that's
100%.
That's my thing with, like, Milton, right? We'll talk about Milton later. I just need you to get him the ball. Like, I don't need, like I joke about wanting to see a Milton overthrow or 2 a game just for the sake of, oh my God, just so I can have that moment of like, oh, Joe, there he is. But in all seriousness, trying to accomplish what you want to do on offense, coaches want game managers. That's why when fans hit a quarterback with game manager, it's a hollow insult to me. And I understand that college is not, I'm not doing a pro and college comparison. I'm saying at any level of football. To manage a game,
it's part of the job description.
That is what you are there to do. To be a system quarterback is to operate well within the system. That is a part of your job. Like if we were to do resumes for quarterbacks, there would be manage the game, work the system, operate within the system for every quarterback. Tom Brady to Shedeur Sanders, right? Like any level of football, they are asked to manage the game and play within the system. Now, if you can make plays outside of structure and you're a playmaker and you're Patrick Mahomes where you've got a little mobility where you don't really need it, but you can do the thing that you do because you're Pat anyway, it doesn't matter. There is some of that stuff that you're not going to try and coach out of them. But for the most part, these guys are asked to execute what the offense presents to them. And to do anything beyond that, that's the playmaking element. But I need to see you operate within structure before I trust you. And that to see Shedeur Sanders do against TCU, who, you know, we know that TCU has questions on defense. Last time the TCU defense was out there, they also got shellacked too. So they may be thinking, you know, different trains of thoughts now after playing one high-level opponent and one who was, I don't know what they are. I just know that they're here, they're loud, and that nobody thought they were going to be, and except for Deion Sanders. And to Deion Sanders' credit, he's manifesting something into existence because that the school that didn't have the money to pay him his contract now has gotten that back tenfold in just 1 week of football.
They're going to be here and loud and fun to watch for the entirety of the season.
Crazy.
Week 1 overreaction. Jalen Milroe, set in stone. He is Alabama's quarterback for the 2023 season.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I loved the picture of Nick Saban and Rick Stockstill together pregame because I want to know what they're saying. I want to know what the conversation is like. Like, what do you say to? And I don't know that I would ever ask a coach that question. Like, I don't know that I would ask Stock that question if we had him on the radio show. I'd be like, what do you say when you know you're not going to win? Like, what do you say to a football team? Like, just be like, all right, man, let's put some good stuff on tape. We're here for a payday, but you're not really getting that payday. That's going to the athletic department. We're getting a payday, but you're not, like, I don't.
Tell that to MTSU after they beat Miami last year.
Oh, fair enough.
Got paid a bunch of money to go down there.
And maybe that's it. You know, we've done it once before. They don't think we can do it again. Here's our moment, and then you lose the way that you do. But okay, either way.
13 of 18, Milroe, 194 yards, 3 touchdowns.
I'm not buying that.
He hit the deep shots. Like, he kind of, the big plays, he was on the money. Didn't look like your prototypical drop back passer. Electric with the ball in his hands, as always. That dude is so fun to watch.
And so that is going to – what Nick Saban's decision is against Texas now it becomes fascinating.
Tyler Buckner, worth noting, was the second quarterback to come in. Then Ty Simpson.
So Sark, did you watch halftime of FSU LSU? Did you watch the halftime show?
I did not watch the halftime
So
show.
they put Sarkisian on. They did an interview with, it was Kevin Nagandi, SportsCenter anchor and studio host, and Booger McFarland. They were the two guys doing the halftime. And they had Sark in the halftime. College football halftime. I forget how long it is compared to pro.
It's an eternity.
In and out. Anyway. So they're asking Sarkisian, record against Nick Saban by his assistants lately. It's getting a little better. It's not as daunting as it once was. And he's cracking jokes about, well, what's the record of guys who didn't coach for Nick Saban against Nick Saban and things like that. But basically, understanding the quarterback situation, Sark has asked about Milroe, and he said, listen, Nick is going to do whatever he thinks is in the best interest of his football team. I don't know what to expect necessarily. What to expect, I think, is going to be dictated by the play caller, and the play caller is in a situation where his quarterback proposition right now is literally week to week. If you're asking me if I saw enough for Jalen Milroe to start against Texas, I think that he is their best chance if it's Milroe or Buckner. And I say that knowing, the caliber of athlete that Ty Simpson was recruited out of the state of Tennessee to be. But I do think that, as Lucas pointed out, it's more notable that Buckner was the second quarterback in that game against MTSU on Saturday than was Simpson. They need a playmaker against Texas. Texas played them very, very close last year in week 2. I don't know how much better Texas is going to be. We know that last year in that game, Quinn Ewers got knocked out in the first quarter, that they were having to, work through that adversity and still gutted out a pretty close result against Alabama, where you thought Alabama might handle them a little more. So I think this is going to be a competitive game, and I think they can use a guy who's explosive with the ball in his hands at quarterback, even if some of the off-schedule stuff or the passing, operating within that system, right? The system that Nick Saban wants to run, even if there's more opportunity for variance there, I think that they need a little bit of variance in this game.
He's never going to be that rhythmic passer.
No.
But if he just takes care of the football, he's going to be really fun to watch this year. Alabama threw the ball 24 times. They rushed it 40 for a total of 205 yards to Mississippi State's 78. So if he could just take care of the football, I think Jalen Milroe is their guy moving forward. Nothing will get him benched quicker than turnovers.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
We'll see. And that'll be the litmus test. The litmus test of that will be against Texas, who had a slow start on offense. Not terribly convincing early on against Rice, kind of like Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Slow-moving offense early on.
They discredit my Hoosiers.
They ended up figuring it out. Your Hoosiers did make life tough on the Ohio State offense. Kyle McCord, I would not say, grabbed that starting job by the reins. And he certainly, I think, left a little bit of doubt up there at Ohio State. My last overreaction to toss at you, the Heisman winner will be a quarterback out of the Pac-12.
Man, we can talk about this coming up next because, honestly, it made me so mad for the Pac-12 that they're doing this well out of the gates in the last year of the conference.
Buddy, I've been crying about this all offseason. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, but now it's real. Is the Pac-12 not undefeated after the first week of football?
That's what I'm saying. That is what has made this so tough, even though I'm not a Pac-12 fan. And yes, I feel bad for our friend Kayla Anderson. But just knowing how good the Pac-12 and how fun the Pac-12 was going to be top to bottom, especially with the way Colorado made its entrance into the Deion era on Saturday, it's just going to make it that much tougher with this last ride of college football as we know it.
I think you lied for the second time today. I don't think you feel bad for Washington State at all. I don't think you care at all about Washington State. I think you're pandering.
I feel bad for college football. This is just, it's ridiculous. It sucks that this is how fun the Pac-12 is what we're talking about, and it's never going to be a thing again after this season.
Well, let's talk about, Lucas brings up an interesting overreaction because the Heisman race did get more interesting in week 1, obviously. There's a lot of different components out there. We can talk about it together. Parker Rye in the F&M Bank chat says of the Pac-12 going out in a blaze of glory. Well, at least they started with one. How they go out remains to be seen. How their quarterbacks go out remains to be seen. But we'll talk about some interesting developments in the Heisman Trophy race coming up next. Welcome back to the show. Heisman race. A little interesting heading into week 2 of college football. Week 1 in the books. Well, will be as of tonight. Is tonight technically a week 1 game?
Yes.
Okay.
Duke and Clemson, which you can hear, by the way, on the Zone. We'll have the Westwood One call.
Why is there as little discussion, like college football writ large, about Clemson this year, do you think? Because DJ getting plenty of love this weekend, Uiagalelei, but less so for a Clemson team that, I think fell short of expectation last year, obvious reasons, turns things over to Cade Klubnik, changes their coaching staff up more dramatically than we normally associate Dabo Swinney doing.
Yeah, it's a pretty pivotal year, it feels like, for Clemson.
And yet it feels that there is as little discussed in the larger landscape. And maybe this is just maybe it's where I'm consuming college football. Maybe it's what I'm reading. Like, I'm not seeking out any Clemson blogs. I'm just kind of trying to consume as much general college football stuff as humanly possible so we can talk about it. I feel there has been as little discussion at the highest, expectation level of college football this year around Clemson as I can remember in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that is fair. I think it's tough with college football nowadays because there's so many other things distracting us. So I bet we could pick out a lot of programs that it's a big year for. And obviously Clemson, what they do out of the ACC can have an impact on the college football playoff. And it's them and Florida State, it looks like right now at the top of that conference. But it is a really pivotal year for them. Dabo Swinney, who never goes outside of the building with his coordinator hires, does so this time around. In comes Garrett Riley to call the offense. And Dabo continues his kind of stubborn way of doing things, not really wanting to adapt to this new landscape. He's not going to be bringing in guys via the portal. So it'll be really interesting to see if Klubnik does take a big step. They play a Duke team that really punched above their weight in year 1 of Mike Elko a year ago. So if Duke's able to sustain that, and if they make life tough on Clemson tonight, then stock will definitely be down on that Clemson program. And Florida State, everybody will kind of put them in the driver's seat in the ACC. Maybe they already have. I don't know. Maybe Jordan Travis is already in the driver's seat for the Heisman race.
I mean, he certainly belongs at the top of the discussion, and we're not going to do the crazy thing where we're saying definitively Jordan Travis is the favorite to win the Heisman after week 1 of college football. Nobody's doing that. But, am I overreacting if I say, and again, my question about Travis Hunter is it sustainable? I felt watching that game, oh my God, does Colorado have 2 Heisman finalists?
Hunter and Shedeur.
And Sanders. Deion Sanders brought in, I think it's north of 80
it's
new
insane.
players.
It's unlike anything we've seen. Like, I know Lincoln hit the portal hard and turned it around very quickly at USC in year 1. But
Lane is famed for portaling on a regular basis.
Not like this. This was so unprecedented to just stand in front of a team meeting and say, go ahead, hit the portal.
Get out. I'm coming with my luggage, and it's Louis. And he's right. So I don't know if Travis Hunter can go through an entire college football season playing. It was like
129
snaps.
Yeah.
It was
Insane.
ungodly.
He didn't leave the field. I've never seen anything like it.
And didn't look phased. He was not he was standing right next to Deion. It was Deion, Travis Hunter, and then Shedeur at the post-game press conference or post-game on-field interview with whoever was doing sidelines for Fox in that game. And it was funny to watch because I was just watching Travis Hunter while Deion was talking. I was like, he's not even breathing hard. What is this? This man has expended more energy on a football field in a college football game than anybody I've seen in the last 10 years of watching college football. He's not even out of breath. This is insane to me. So I don't know if the two of them will finish in the Heisman Trophy conversation. I don't know if we're having if it even matters for a non-quarterback to be factored into the Heisman conversation at the end of the day anymore. Are we at that point? Is it like NFL MVP? Am I doing other positions a disservice by even mentioning them in conversation for the Heisman?
And these things will play out throughout the course of the season, but obviously the quarterbacks are the ones that have to do it every single week, right? Like
Yeah.
you have to have big performances every week. So you look at who did that in week 1, and Michael Penix comes to mind for me. 450 yards, 5 touchdowns against Boise State. Like my overreaction from week 1. I'm declaring this my blanket overreaction from week 1 that the Heisman winner will be out of the Pac-12. Be a quarterback. It'll be either Penix, Shador, or Bo Nix, or Caleb Williams. The list keeps going.
You know what? Bo Nix been the butt of a lot of jokes during his time in the SEC. Good for Bo Nix. Like, I think that's so cool to see him succeeding that way after having, a lot of his time at Auburn, I think, in an unfair way, a lot of the results at Auburn placed on the shoulders of Bo Nix in ways that it just did not seem like a conducive or a productive working environment for him to be able to succeed. Now you see him thriving in Oregon. I mean, just unbelievable.
23 of 27, 287 yards, 3 touchdowns in a 81-7 win over Portland State.
So USC has the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, and they are now averaging, you know how many points USC is averaging through 2 games?
Oh, is it in the 50s? Did they put up 50 again?
It's higher.
They got in the 60s on Saturday?
61. They're averaging 61 points.
Yeah, at 56 in week 0.
So you've got Caleb Williams, as you mentioned, Bo Nix. Are we actually having this conversation about Michael Penix? Because,
Yes.
when you brought this up to me, like, I don't know, it was probably 8 or 9 weeks into the college football season. Hey, have you seen what Michael Penix is doing? I was like, the IU guy? What? No. For all I knew, Michael Penix was still at Indiana. And then you explained to me the situation. And to hear people in the world of college football, coaches talk about Michael Penix, it's been pretty interesting to see the steps that he's taken them. He was, again, unreal on Saturday. Lucas mentioned 450 yards and 5 touchdowns, 29 of 40. So the attempts, I mean, he's throwing the football. They are throwing the football with volume there.
Does it hurt you that he's doing it with his former OC at Indiana, Kalen DeBoer?
That is funny. Does it hurt me? No, you can't hurt me with Indiana football.
Yeah, you don't care.
Should I do a better job paying attention to Indiana football? Like, honestly. Like,
No.
Okay.
No. It would do you no good.
I just,
No reason to start pretending now.
I feel like we're past that point. So, the Heisman Trophy winner coming out of the USC. I asked Josh Pate in here, what was that, last
Out of
Wednesday?
the Pac-12, you mean?
Yes, I'm sorry, out of the Pac-12. I asked Josh Pate in here last week, Caleb Williams of the field. And I think the better question would have been the Pac-12 of the field.
Yeah. Yeah, because outside of the Pac-12.
Because I don't know that I would go the field.
Who are we talking about? Jaden Daniels was up there before the season.
Not anymore.
He didn't get off to a great start in that regard. Jordan Travis has to be.
Yep.
I think Sam Hartman will continue to be.
I agree.
Another TSU up there, by the way. I caught a little bit of that. Eddie George and TSU at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Some local flavor in that game. Kenny Minchie made his Notre Dame debut, former Pope Prep quarterback, a true freshman in South Bend. But
I know them more as former Tennessee high school football heroes.
Yes. Fair. And Drake May in that conversation.
North Carolina has a defense. What happened?
Yeah.
What? I'm so confused.
I tend to think that we're going to get the same South Carolina experience again this year, where that offense is just going to pop in moments and in games the way they last season couldn't get into the end zone, couldn't put up any points on offense. Their only source of points against Florida a year ago on special teams, and then turned around and put up 60-plus on Tennessee the following week. I wonder if we're going to continue to get that from South Carolina, the inconsistency.
Should we do it this way? And by the way, I know Shane Beamer said ridiculous things at the press conference. We'll wait till tomorrow. We'll get to Shane Beamer. So maybe we do it this way. Why don't every Monday, do we have anything to do Monday at 11:45 in the regular season?
No.
During the Titans regular season? Why don't we do who won the Heisman this week?
Okay.
Why don't we do that every week at 11:45? So I think if you're asking me who won the Heisman this week, it's Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter won the Heisman to me this week. I'm not saying that he's going to win the Heisman. I'm not saying he's going to do it every week. Travis Hunter, wide receiver, cornerback, whatever the hell he is. 11 catches, 119 yards, a pick and a pass breakup against TCU. The touchdown, just
the interception.
The interception.
Go look at the interception.
The interception is ungodly.
No business making that play. Is that the most like the most singular, fascinating thing about what the Colorado experience is going to be this year?
Yes.
After week one?
Yes.
Like how many weeks can this guy do this?
Because I immediately started to, like, Gus Johnson started having the conversation. At least I think it was Gus on the call.
It was Gus and Joel Clapp
after the game. But they were talking about, well, maybe this will start a trend for people to play both ways in college football. I'm like, stop it. Did you see him? Stop. Do not do this.
That's going to be the exception, I would think.
Let's get through week one. You want to talk about overreaction? That was a ridiculous Maybe this will push kids to play both ways in college football. I'm saying, you don't think more kids would do that if they could? You out of your mind? And I don't know. Again, I don't want to put that on Gus. I don't remember if specifically it was Gus. It may be part of Fox post-game coverage. But I was pulling my hair out listening to that commentary, screaming, "No! I mean, stop it!"
Can anyone name a player that has done this?
So
Adoree Jackson, a little bit at USC. So much, though, that he was drafted thinking that he could bring some of that to the NFL.
Okay, no, that was about as exotic Smash Mouth got when Malarkey was running Adoree out there for offensive snaps.
Sure, but am I wrong? Was he not drafted with the thought that
that was a discussion?
Yeah, and it happened. Yeah. Like he played offense under Mike Malarkey.
We also thought that he would be a returner, and that very quickly did not. LSU vibes.
But this just doesn't happen. It's just not a thing.
Somebody brought this up in I mentioned my Gamblers Digest group text. Somebody brought this up, Chris Gamble in 2002 at Ohio State.
Yeah.
As the last example of that. But that's the only one that even comes close in recent memory. I mean, other than, Deion himself. And maybe a little premature to draw those comparisons. 615-737-1045 is the number. The Vols won decisively on Saturday at Nissan Stadium here in Nashville. We talked about it, but we haven't dug deep into Joe Milton's performance. We'll do so coming up next. You'll also hear from Kevin Byard as the Titans get ready for the Saints in Week 1. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 12:03. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Week 1 of the college football season got underway this weekend. Number 12 Tennessee routed Virginia at Nissan Stadium 49-13. Joe Milton 21 of 30 for 201 yards and 2 touchdowns to go with 2 rushing touchdowns. Vols outrushed the Cavaliers 287-95. On Sunday night, number 8 Florida State ran away from 5th-ranked LSU, outscoring the Tigers 31-7 in the second half to win it 45-24. It is week 1 for the Tennessee Titans as they prepare to head to New Orleans to play the Saints and kick off the 2023 season. Head coach Mike Vrabel met with the media earlier this morning, was asked for an update on Treylon Burks, and says they'll continue to monitor his progress throughout the course of the week.
He'll do more today, and he's added more, each day, I would say, since last week, and was diligent in his rehab and worked hard to get back. So, again, we have a little longer week. I have to be conscious that, we're working our execution throughout the week, but also, being mindful that it is a longer week and that we're ready to go for Sunday.
For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour. Is anybody alive out there? Happy Labor Day to you. Lucas and I are working today. All 4 shows on 104.5 The Zone are on the air. Tennessee played a game here in Nashville just a few days ago, so we figure why not? Come in the studio, see if anybody's around, see if anybody wants to talk some Vols, and we'll do so specifically about Joe Milton here in just a second. You're also going to hear Kevin Byard's press conference, Titans and Saints, getting ready to kick off in just a few short days. I'll be on my way down to New Orleans for coverage there. 615-737-1045 is the number. F&M Bank Chat is where you can interact on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can live stream the show and watch us like guinea pigs in a studio, like goldfish, basically, in an aquarium. I feel as alone today doing the radio show as ever we have. I don't think there's anybody else. I know that Amy Page is here at 103.3. I saw her across the hall when I walked physically in here. Other than the existence of Amy Page in this building, I believe it's just the 3 of us in the physical building today.
It is a ghost town.
It's concerning. Either way, we're happy to talk to you if you want to get in. Let's talk about Joe Milton, though, specifically, because of all the questions about Tennessee's season and all the different ways that you can break down what it is that he potentially brings to the table, Lucas has a spray bottle back there for me anytime I get too close to talking about him as a pro prospect, and I promise you I'm not going to do that until at least December. But Joe Milton, biggest question mark of the season for the Vols, full stop. His accuracy, his mechanics, his operation, his skill set, how much better, if at all, can Joe Milton get throughout the course of the 2023 season? He's not a bad player. He's got athletic gifts that will wow you. He is going to be the starting quarterback, I would imagine, barring injury, for the entirety of this season. But what I saw from him in a 2-touchdown performance and a 49-13, not a 49-point win. Well, I guess it was a 49-point win, but
2 passing touchdown performance.
Correct. What I saw from Joe Milton, am I allowed to say that I was kind of discouraged? I don't know that I expected a quarterback who has been in college football for 6 years, to dramatically improve. And I don't know that I expect him to dramatically improve in such a way that I noticed against Virginia. But watching some of the miscues, some of the mechanical errors, not saying that Joe had a bad day by any stretch of the imagination. If you're going to box score scout him, he looked fine. But for those of you who kind of moaned and groaned your way throughout the course of that 49-13 win, specifically about your quarterback, I think you kind of understand the perspective that I'm coming from here. It's not that I don't think that Joe Milton can't at his height, not physical height, but at his talent height, do I think that Joe Milton can keep Tennessee in contention enough to make the playoff? Can Tennessee be one of the teams that we have not yet seen participate in the college football playoff? Can they be a newcomer this year? Their ceiling, to me, is capped by Milton. He doesn't turn the ball over, as Lucas correctly noted. He has not thrown an interception since he started playing for the University of Tennessee. But I was discouraged enough by the miscues to think, okay, he is what he is at this point. I don't expect Joe Milton is going to get drastically better. He can incrementally improve. He can settle in throughout the course of the season. But for the most part, am I overreacting, Lucas? Speaking of week one overreactions, if I come out here and say, I think Joe Milton's a finished product, and I think that as good as he's going to get within the system, we'll see that this year. It's going to be, you'll have the roller coaster experience where he misses some layups that he should make. Maybe he has an 80-yard touchdown dropped by Ramel Keaton, and because I had some people in the F&M Bank chat bring up earlier, do you feel any better if he completes the 80-yarder to Keaton?
The numbers look better, but
the numbers look better.
Nothing's
but I
different about
no.
the throw. The throw was on the money.
The
right?
throw was on the money.
You evaluate the throw, whether or not Keaton catches it, then you're just talking about padding stats.
Correct. The throw was good. The throw was good Milton. The bad was Keaton. So it's not a knock on Milton that the pass was dropped. It's a knock on Keaton. Can Joe put a little more touch on the ball? Can he make it an easier catch for Ramel Keaton? Maybe not on that 80-yard pass, but was it a crossing pattern across the middle or a crossing pattern over the middle that Keaton just kind of let go through his hands? I thought that Joe might have ripped that one in there a little hard, and those can be difficult catches to make. So I want to give a little grace to the receiver in that spot because I know that Milton is going to throw it through his chest.
And there were some misses that followed that.
Yes.
On the next drive, that same drive, that was a 1st and 10, Tennessee's first snap of the drive after Virginia missed the field goal. Vols at their own 20. Second down, Milton runs for 3 yards. 3rd and 7, he misses Brew McCoy on what would have been a chain mover. Tennessee has to punt. On their following drive, Tennessee ends up punting again. He misses Dante Thornton on a 2nd and 2 at the Virginia 32. So, yeah, there were some miscues there that followed the drop. It felt like the drop kind of knocked Tennessee out of sync for a little bit, right? Because if Ramel Keaton catches that and strolls into the end zone for an 80-yard touchdown, it's 14-0. And at that point, even though it's just a 2-possession game, Vols are cruising. Virginia's making absolutely nothing happen up front. It felt like that knocked Tennessee out of sync, knocked them off kilter just a little bit. But it is ironic that you say that because the thing that Joe has been most scrutinized for in his time at Tennessee feels like the thing he's cleaned up the most.
Deep ball accuracy.
The deep ball accuracy has been fantastic ever since he came in, ever since Hendon Hooker started football games for this team and came in for Joe Milton. The deep ball accuracy has been through the roof for Joe since then. I don't recall a deep ball missed in the Orange Bowl against Clemson or against UVA.
I'd have to go back and watch the Orange Bowl, but there's not one that jumps to mind.
Or in his spot duty cleaning up for Hendon Hooker throughout the course of last season.
So that can be incremental improvement. And maybe that's as much improvement or incremental improvement as you see from Joe Milton this year, that the deep ball accuracy is better. That matters. You need home run hits.
The big play, if Tennessee can run the football this season, the big play is always going to be in play, so to speak.
And so maybe he mitigates some of the routine passes or routine throws that he should make and that he misses by improving upon deep ball accuracy and still giving Tennessee that home run threat because they've got it. Well, Squirrel White also had a bit of a situation. I haven't seen any information.
Heupel said today he's okay. He would have come back in if it wasn't a blowout.
Okay. So, and yeah, that's, 49-13. You're not going to put guys like Barron and Squirrel White back out there.
I think Tennessee comes out relatively healthy.
Okay. So they've got the speed. They've got the guys that can get open downfield. They got the system to put them in positions where they're just going to be wide open windows for Milton to hit. Can Milton have enough of an improvement on deep ball completion percentage to mitigate the routine misses? I think that the answer to that can be yes, and it still provide you a point of frustration. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to get in on the conversation. Let's go to Marlon, who's calling us from Murfreesboro up first. Hey, Marlon.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How y'all doing?
Good.
Hey, I'm gonna give Joe a C plus on his performance. I don't think he's gonna be the one that's gonna win a lot of ball games this year. I think the defense is gonna be the one that's gonna win a lot of ball games this year. But at the same time, though, I feel like his receiver core is not as good as Hooker's, because if Tillman and Hyatt would have stayed, I think Joe would be eating a whole lot better. I just think that the receivers looked real lazy on Saturday. They looked timid. They just didn't look like they had enough energy or burst. And then also Joe needs to work on his speed. He's been there a long time for a quarterback. He just seems like when he runs up the middle, he just can't get no burst or something. But the receiving core, I'm kind of nervous about the receiving core, especially when we go and play against teams that have aggressive corners and stuff. I just think the receiving core is a little bit too timid. That's all I'd say.
Well, I don't know about lazy. The lazy is not a word I'm going to use. And it's kind of like trying to appreciate the call, Marlon, 615-737-1045. Let's talk about this coming up next. You'll also hear from Kevin Byard at the podium at St. Thomas Sports Park. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back. 615-737-1045. We got some phone calls to take. We'll do that here in just a second. Reacting to the Tennessee Volunteers Week 1 win just down the road at Nissan Stadium, 49-13 over the Virginia Cavaliers. We had a caller bring up earlier the idea of a lack of burst of from the wide receivers. Felt like Joe Milton didn't have as much help as, say, Hendon Hooker might have with Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman. I don't know what Brew McCoy or Squirrel White or Ramel Keaton are going to project to be. I don't think that that's fair to do to them right now after a Week 1 performance.
They're going to be open.
They are going to be open.
I feel like we've seen enough from this offense to say that with certainty.
I like Brew McCoy enough in this offense because he's a big body. He can post dudes up. He can go make contested catches. And if they're going to scheme him wide the hell open, then I'm not worried about Brew McCoy. Now, Ramel Keaton with the drops, I don't know if that's just a Week 1 thing or if that's something that I'm going to have to pay attention to throughout the course of the year. But I'm not going to make any sweeping assessments about Brew McCoy about Ramel Keaton just because he had a less than ideal game. I will say to the previous caller's point about Milton and burst as a runner, that's not what he does. You know what I'm saying? Joe Milton is not, again, I thought that the Anthony Richardson, people trying to draw parallels between them heading into this college football season was so horrible. Now, just from having watched the two players, knowing who they are, Joe Milton is as almost pure a pocket passer as you'll find in college football this year. Joe Milton is not a quarterback whose game is predicated off mobility. Anthony Richardson's absolutely was at the time. Now, he may refine better as a passer, but Joe Milton is a pocket passer.
Again, people don't think that deeply when they're making those comparisons, though. Like, those comparisons are almost always so surface level. Like, people aren't watching tape when they make those comparisons.
Oh, I know, but it pisses me off now because I watch more college football than I know a lot of my NFL people do. I didn't used to, right? This has been a growing process. I'm an NFL person. I'm an NFL reporter. You had to drag me along for the first year, basically, trying to get me to understand, hey, idiot, the college football fan base is way bigger than the team that you cover. You got to figure it out from time to time. So we have. And since then, now that I watch college football a hell of a lot more than I used to, I'm offended when those comparisons get made by NFL people because I understand that disconnect and that it does actually exist.
It's as simple as big physical prospect with all the tools and a rocket arm. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Don't do it. Don't even then. Don't do it.
But also, don't beat yourself up about getting mad about it when it's just surface level stuff.
No. I want that to be my lane. I would like to be the person screaming at my friends and colleagues. Hey, stop it, cut it out. Just for my purposes. Jackie, speaking of Murfreesboro, Jackie's up next. Hey, Jackie.
Hey, gentlemen.
What's up?
Yes. I just wanted to bring up the fact of talking about the Joe Milton. Bring up the fact that this is his first game. I mean, he probably has some jitters and whatever, but we also got to go all the way back to the Clemson game last year. Where would Tennessee have been without Joe Milton?
Well, I guess my thing is, Jackie, I don't do first game jitters with quarterbacks anymore. He's been in college football for 6 years. You know what I'm saying?
I understand that, but it's first game of the year, and I'm not saying that I agree with you there. He's been around 6 years. He should be seasoned and ready to go, but still, we're still looking at kids, and they want to perform to the top, and do that. Like I said, but I feel like he done a great job Saturday. There was some things that's probably going to be changed, and I have all the confidence and hype in the world that they will be changed.
Well, thank you for the call, Jackie. We appreciate it. 60 seconds on the clock. Oh, actually, when I ask follow-ups, we should probably get rid of the Oscars music. That's on me.
Yeah, I think when you ask a follow-up, the clock gets
extended,
reset.
Okay,
yeah,
I like that rule.
On Joe Milton, this might encapsulate the Joe Milton experience more than anything. Tennessee was 5 of 13 on third downs against Virginia. Do you know what Tennessee was in third down conversions against Clemson in the Orange Bowl? What we consider to be a really good performance from Joe.
5 of 13 against Virginia?
They were 3 of 13 against Clemson.
Oh, okay.
It kind of encapsulates the Joe Milton experience in that there's going to be some efficiency issues. You're probably not going to be having long sustained drives converting every time up and down the field. You're going to put the ball away a lot. That was something that Hendon Hooker did really well for Tennessee. He kept drives alive over and over and over again.
Sustainability of offense is critical for that team with that style of play.
It feels like Joe's misses come in quick succession. It's just boom, boom, 3 and out, you're punting.
Yeah.
And then he hits Ramel Keaton on an 80-yard touchdown, right? Then he hits a 34-yard slant over the middle. The offense is in business. You're running the ball. You end up scoring 30, 40-something points, and it masks the 3 of 13, 5 of 13 third down conversion rate.
Your peaks are higher. Your valleys are lower.
Like, Tennessee's going to score a lot of points this year, yet the offense is not going to be as rhythmic and as flowing as it was with Hendon Hooker. It's going to be kind of an odd place to be in where Tennessee could put up 45 points in a game and go 4 of 14 on third downs because the shot plays and the big plays are going to be enough to keep it afloat.
So is that a flaw? You can't have that kind of conversion rate on third down and be an overwhelmingly successful football team. I just think in principle. But what you've just described, I think, changes the evaluation a little bit because you are going to have those boom plays and the bust plays if it's a drop or an incompletion or a punt or something like that. I just don't know if you can exist that way against Georgia, right? And maybe you can, or Alabama in Tuscaloosa. The caller, was it? It was Jackie. Jackie articulated, I think, the most optimistic view of Saturday's performance. I don't think, just to push back on that little bit, he said, I thought Joe Milton did a great job. I don't think Joe Milton did a great job. I think Joe Milton did enough. And that I need to see more from Joe Milton to improve my confidence. I'm not telling you have to be pessimistic about Joe Milton. If you prefer to have an optimistic outlook about that quarterback and his potential and the possibilities within the system, I'm certainly not going to discourage you from week 1. But I do disagree with the opinion that Joe Milton was great and that he's going to get better. I look at Joe Milton as a finished product for the most part. And I understand what I'm going to get from Clemson to Virginia because Jackie was saying that the Joe Milton experience might have been slightly different, might have been better against Clemson. But for the most part, it sounded like we got a more efficient version of Joe, even if the efficiency wasn't great. So I'm not looking at Joe and saying, I know that to be an efficient quarterback. You know who I know to be an efficient quarterback? Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker does not have the skill set of Joe Milton. Joe Milton does not have the skill set of Hendon Hooker. And that's okay. Don't comparison shop that way.
I think that is kind of going to be the experience this year.
Right. He's a 6-year college quarterback. He is what he is. You find ways to mitigate his flaws. You find ways to play to his strengths. That's what a good and smart coaching staff to do. Honestly, the more that we talk about it, Trippin' Titan says Buck is ruining Vols Homer's holiday. I love it. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to have a legitimate conversation about the quarterback. I honestly think that any progress that Joe Milton makes this year, I'm probably going to be more inclined to attribute it to the coaching staff. When Joe Milton goes out there and has an efficient game, I'm going to look at the plays that the coaching staff was calling for him and say, did they put him in a better position to succeed? I think you find out a lot more about your coaching staff this year than you do about Joe Milton. Because this is a little bit of a heavier lift. Maybe you feel like it shouldn't be, but what they are now going to have to do is a heavier lift on the coaching staff, and Heupel is the play caller, than it is on Joe Milton, I think.
Yeah, there's going to be some frustrations this year. When drives stall out because of those quick hit misses that seem to happen back to back to back, like we've talked about, Tennessee 3 and out is a lot quicker than most 3 and outs, which makes them a little more frustrating when you're on the field for like 30 seconds because you ran 3 quick plays with that tempo and suddenly you're punting in the flash of an eye. But the chunk plays and those deep shots, and when the run game is just pulverizing whatever defensive front they're playing like they were against Virginia, it's just going to be really, really fun to watch. I think the best version of this Tennessee offense this year is going to be when they're dominant running the football and Joe is not asked to be the one to move the ball down the field.
People are going to look at Joe Milton and say, we need to lean on that guy.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here screaming, no, lean on your ground game.
The run game will set up the shot plays, and Tennessee can score 40 points a game doing that this year.
615-737-1045 is how you join the conversation, talking Tennessee after a massive result, 49-13 against Virginia here in Nashville on Saturday. Let's go to Chuck in Clarksville next. Hey, Chuck.
Hey, Buck. Hey, I thought Joe was efficient enough, and I think that's what they want him to be. You're right. He's not going to be Hendon Hooker. He's got limitations on what he can do, but he did throw an 80-yard pass, which he hasn't done in years past. I mean, it was so comfortable and right on the money that it gives you some hope that he can do that more. And then he did throw, like I said, he threw when he needed to throw, but this running game is going to be the key to this team this year. If they keep running the ball like they are, we don't want Joe Milton to throw it 40 times a game. We want him to throw it 20, 25.
Thanks for the call, Chuck. I think they want him to be more accurate. He has to be more accurate. And I know 49-13, you're going to say, okay, well, it didn't matter that much. There are going to be moments that matter. When you host Georgia, he has to be more accurate. He has to be more efficient. He has to sustain offense. He has to keep Georgia off the field.
Because I don't know that you can consistently rely on the run against the Georgia Bulldogs front.
Especially if they know that that's the thing you're leaning on to.
Yeah.
That's not and Tennessee's offensive line situation looked fine against Virginia. We'll find out more about them not this week against Austin Peay, but probably in 2 weeks against Florida. And the stable of running backs looks competent to above average right now. Let's temper. It's just the kind of same thing that football coaches say all the time, and I hate that that after 3 years of doing a sports talk radio show and screaming that I hate coach speak that I now default to. It really does matter when they say don't get too high, don't get too low. The result is never as good or never as bad as you thought it was. You need middle ground. You need consistency. You need efficiency. Those are things that this offense has to improve upon. That we know, right? What did we need to learn? We now learned that Joe Milton has to be more efficient. Brent in Spring Hill next. Hey, Brent.
Hey, the problem is in the read option, the quarterback has to run sometimes, and he refuses to run. I saw it so many times. I think that's the problem with the third down conversions. He would pull the ball for a 4-yard check down when he had a 20-yard outside lane that he could have taken.
Yeah, Brent, I think that's a great point by you because he's not a running quarterback.
He's not a natural runner, and you can kind of tell that. Like, it looked a lot more instinctive for Hooker, right? Like Hooker was a more savvy runner.
But, hey, that again comes back to I'm not putting that on Milton. If he can't do it as well, don't do it with him.
He's just, you're talking about, but when you talk about goal line situations.
Yeah, you have to be able to do that. That has to exist.
But I'm saying that's
going
to be a strength of his. That's going to be a strength of his.
Oh, sure.
Right? Just short yardage stuff.
He's giant.
With Joe Milton. He can just fall forward. He's going to be that type of runner. Like that. It might have encapsulated it perfectly. That one run we were talking about in the red zone against Virginia. Juke left, no. Juke right, no. Okay, I'm just going to stiff arm and go over.
I'm larger than you, small corner. I'm just going to grab you by the face mask and go over the top of you.
Literally planted the guy and gained 5 extra yards.
But again, it's not him juking is not natural.
Yeah, right. Sure.
So it doesn't need the read option stuff doesn't need to be completely removed from the playbook. But you have to find, and Virginia's a testing ground for that. It's like Alabama working through their quarterback situation against MTSU. It's a preseason game for them to an extent. And I think that Brent makes an excellent point, and it's something that the coaching staff is going to know to say, okay, we're trying this stuff. He's not taking to it the way that the last guy did. Let's pare this down out of the playbook or at least find better situations to implement. That's good coaching.
He had 9 carries. They want him to run the football.
But I'm not saying that they have to outright move away from it. But there has to be a recognition upon the coaching staff, and this is when we find out more about Josh Heupel. This is a heavier lift for Josh Heupel than it has been in the last 2 seasons. There are expectations. There are 69,000 plus Vols fans screaming at the top of their lungs for a game in Nashville that's not their home stadium against a team that whatever Virginia is. Like, people are foaming at the mouth. Vols fans are excited. It's cool. But this is more scrutiny. I'm putting more scrutiny on Josh Heupel this year than I am on Joe Milton. And I don't think that many people, or I don't think that's been the larger conversation. But I think there's more that coaching staff has to show me with how they manage him specifically. Not that they can, just, I'm curious about it. How about Donnie in Smyrna next? Hey, Donnie.
Hi, guys. Listen, if what I saw yesterday is what we've got to fight with this year, we're in trouble. I don't think Milton will even finish the year out as a starting quarterback. And if all these little quick outs and stuff, yeah, they're fine against Vanderbilt or Virginia or Austin Peay. That stuff ain't working against Georgia and Alabama and Texas A&M. We don't have a prayer if this is what we got. And I'm a little disappointed in the fact that Milton threw a perfect ball and the receiver dropped it, and we never went back to it. So I don't know what the deal is, but we got to do something, or this ain't going to work.
Well, it becomes a question, Donnie, and I appreciate the call. It becomes a question, what are your expectations for them? Because theoretically, what they did on Saturday worked, right? The ground game works.
Yeah.
The defense against Virginia works. That is not, the ground game is, but like defensive football is not the hallmark of what I associate Josh Heupel in Tennessee to be. Yeah?
But if it is something that they can lean on, if they can just get to a point where they can lean on it at times, it will make a massive difference for this team.
Sure.
Massive. And the defense just surface level week one against a really bad offense passed those tests.
Can I ask people with a straight face to not try and carry over last year to this year?
Well, Joe is in an interesting spot because he's following up the Hendon Hooker experience, one that he was very much a part of, being benched for Hooker and backing him up in their relationship and all of those things.
All the feel good.
Yeah, and he's sandwiched between that and what they did a year ago, being so ahead of schedule, and the incoming hype coming in behind him with Nico, that it's a really interesting place. And it's not an easy place to be.
No. In fact, I think it's the most difficult position of any of them, of Hooker, of Nico. I think Milton is in the toughest spot because
not only are you following up the guy, you're also preceding the other guy.
You're going to be looked at if things don't go to plan as you're in the way. You're the thing holding us back. And I don't love that for Joe Milton.
I think we're a ways from that still.
Well, no. Donnie's not.
Donnie's not. Donnie's not.
There are more Donnies. Donnie's not the only Donnie out there.
To me, it's insane to say this guy's not going to make it down the rest of the season.
Well, yeah, and I'm not disputing that. We need a little crazy. That's why we love Vols fans. But I think that tempering expectations is critical this year. I don't know that you can't win 11 games this year. All I'm saying is try your best, not carry over last year's results and put them on the shoulders of this year's team. They're not the same. Dougie in Nashville. Hey, Dougie.
What's going on?
What you got?
Hey, man, I wanted to check on all my LSU fans out there. Want to make sure y'all, you're good and everything. Y'all supposed to whoop us last night. Y'all supposed to beat us up real good. What about them Noles, baby? Let's go.
It was nice. It was nice. I for some reason there's a strong contingent of Florida State football fans that live in Nashville, Tennessee. And I had a bunch of them just peppering me via text last night about Jordan Travis. And by the way, deserved.
They should be excited, man.
They should be thrilled.
Yeah.
Florida State in the landscape of college football. Took him a little while. Mike Norvell was doubted, not Deion Sanders at Colorado level of doubted, but Mike Norvell was looked at as being like, okay, they're just really Taggarting this thing again to get by. And that's not what this is at all. This is a legitimate college football program with a Heisman candidate at quarterback who I thought the best thing that he did, he started the game awesome, had a little bit of a speed bump in the second quarter, and then finished with flying colors in a way that is going to be tough for anybody in that position to do.
Hey, that Clemson game,
Huge.
is in 3 weeks.
Oh, is it that
Like,
early?
Yeah, it's coming up. That's before the end of September.
Is that their biggest game of the year?
By far. By far. I mean, you look at the way this it's such a favorable schedule, and a lot of it due to the nature of a weak ACC. But you go to Clemson. So Southern Miss at home, at Boston College, at Clemson. And from there on out, it's Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Duke, Wake Forest, Pittsburgh, Miami. Like some rivalry games in there. Obviously, wacky things can happen. But if you beat Clemson, the expectation becomes 12-0.
It should.
For Florida. It unequivocally should. And if you don't, the expectation should be 11-1.
Yeah, especially in the ACC.
Yeah, whereas if you're LSU, suddenly you're talking about potentially having to run the table and then win the SEC championship to get to the playoff.
Last call for phone calls. Poll questions next. Last call for phone calls. 615-737-1045. You got them. Polls in just a sec. We're live all day. Blaine and Mickey, 3HL after that. So if you're riding around on Labor Day, we appreciate you spending a little time with us. I have made a note, Lucas, that next year we agreed to do this. We were willing. Nobody forced our hand, but next year I'm putting our foot down collectively. We're not doing this again next year. Because I was trying to think, I was like, oh yeah, I'll take another day at some point down the line, and then I realized, oh, we have no more days. Football season starts on Sunday,
which is a lovely, lovely thing.
Of course. But we could have used the extra Monday, bud. Unless you're just dying to talk to me today.
Of course I was. Well, not to you, to the
audience. Oh, to the people. Are you going to do the people now? The people. Now who's the strident one? Toby in Bowling Green is next. Hey, Toby. Lucas fade the phone
guys.
call. Nope. Hey, Toby.
Got me?
Yep.
Hey, I wanted to start off, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. I have to agree with you to an extent about Milton. I was expecting a bit more out of him. However, we did beat an ACC team by, we scored 49 freaking points on them, right? So I think that it's like any other game. The next 2 weeks, we're probably going to score the same amount of points. Until we play Florida, we're not going to know what our team is about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yes, I want to see more things out of Milton than I saw out of him Saturday. But I think as this team moves forward, we're going to see that happen. We're going to see them do things. Too many passes were dropped that could have been caught. Yeah, Joe throws the ball too hard sometimes. And he's better now than he was. So those were the things that I wanted to say. I appreciate very much you giving me the opportunity.
Thanks for the call, Toby. Yeah, I'm just kind of anything that Milton does better from now on, I'm just kind of taking as gravy. It's if Joe Milton makes progress, I don't expect it. I kind of think that Joe is who he is right now, and that's okay. They can still win football games.
This Joe Milton beat a playoff-worthy Clemson team in the Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
This Joe Milton can win you 9 games, 10 if some things bounce the right way.
I'm not anti-Joe Milton. I'm just saying I think that Joe has a plateau, and I think we have reached Joe's plateau.
Did you see the uniforms that they will be wearing against Austin Peay on Saturday?
I did, because you showed me this morning, which is why you're asking me, what's the word? What do you...
Damn, man. You really just undercut me there. This is just theater of the mind. Like
it's like
what
when I say hello to you when the radio show starts. Like we haven't just spent an hour.
We've been
in a
talking
small
for an
room
hour and a
together.
half,
and even more before that because we got on the phone.
Oh, hello. Good morning, friend. Good to see you.
So stupid. Do we have anything else to say before we wrap things up for the day?
No, you just skipped right over my uniform. Did you not like the uniform and you didn't want to say anything? Is that what it is? You didn't like it? No. You didn't like the Artful Dodger
Well, not
tribute?
when you told me that the real ones are white instead of gray.
They did like the smoky gray spin-off of the Artful Dodger uniform. I would like to see it white with the orange shoulder pads. I think
if you'd have told me that was the uniform and why they were doing it, I would have said fine. But now that you spoiled it for me by telling me, the actual uniform.
Anything to honor Condra Holloway, though, I will support.
Okay. Pulse, please.
Hello, my name is Borat. There is a show in America called Buck Rising. I like very much. As a man named Lucas, like my producer, as a motherfucker, will update something called Final Pollings. I'm very excited, very excited. Do it, Lucas. La 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 la.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty new Ford. What encouraged you most about Tennessee's performance on Saturday? JP says the defensive performance and the run game.
Yes, and yes. Those are the two things that encouraged me by far and away. The defense specifically and Pierce. I thought Pierce was phenomenal.
Just dominant in the trenches both ways. I think that goes for the offensive line as well. They weren't perfect. They didn't look like the best offensive line in the country, but they were moving people. Run game was efficient against a solid front.
They did their jobs.
What discouraged you most about Tennessee's performance against UVA? Smoothie King says the lack of Titan scouts in the stands.
Okay. We're going to talk about this. There's a tweet out there alleging that the Tennessee Titans have spat in the face of volunteer fans in this state for years upon years. At some point, probably Wednesday, we're going to address the level of stupidity of that tweet.
Oh, are we reserving it for the dumbest thing in sports this week?
I don't even think it's worth the air.
Can we make it a blanket one so I don't have to come up with one?
Yeah, we can, buddy. I'll do a whole
We've done
hour.
that before.
I think that's the stupidest thing I've seen on the internet all year. And I like Charlie Burris as a friend. He's a coworker at A to Z Sports. Charlie tweeted, somebody sent it to me, tagged me, and it said, this is the dumbest thing in sports this week. Charlie said, don't you know we work for the same company? I responded, Charlie said, it doesn't mean I have to support your idiot opinions. What the hell is that?
What are we most overreacting to after week 1 of the college football season, Kenneth?
That right there was the overreaction. Get the hell out of here, Charlie.
Basically, everybody says Colorado. It will be interesting.
No.
Like, what if TCU just goes down a path this season on just the ultimate hangover from that run a year ago, and Colorado really levels off? It's going to be somewhere in the middle, right? Like, we're not going to see Shedeur Sanders throwing for 500 yards a game, but Colorado obviously going to be better than anybody would have given them credit for before the season.
Don't be fooled because they've won one game. They have now matched their win total of all of last year. I know the roster is almost entirely different, but let's not. That was not an overreaction. That was a reaction.
I think
what
they showed us was it's going to be fun. This is going to be a really fun ride for Colorado in year 1 of the prime era.
Yes.
Who is leading the Heisman race after week 1? Kenneth says it goes Caleb Williams, Shedeur Sanders, Jordan Travis, Michael Penix, and Travis Hunter. I don't really know if I have any issues with that pecking order right there.
If it's after week 1, Travis Hunter's at the top.
Yeah, maybe.
If we're going off a week 1 sample size, I know Caleb Williams has played 2 games. If you're asking me week 1, who's the Heisman winner? It's not going to be all season long. I don't think he can do it all season long, but that guy, unbelievable. Those are the polls. That's the show. We appreciate you guys spending your time here with us. Puka says, I was wondering why nobody talked about Charlie's tweet today, because it's stupid. Because it's really, really stupid. And we reserve those stupid things for Wednesday. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Enjoy your Labor Day. What remains of it, Blaine and Mickey got you next.